Celtics trail the New York Knicks 0-2 in their best-of-7 series with Game 3 set for tomorrow. And we figure we can break it down with former Providence head coach Tim Welsh joining us here on Jones and Keefe. Tim, thanks for joining us here. High noon.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be with you guys. I just want to get something straight before we get going here. I heard you talking about your skill levels in competition, Adam, with your juggling, and that I can make a killer spaghetti carbonara. So, if you guys are interested, we could enter that in any type of competition moving forward. So.
Definitely. Oh, that'd pair nicely with our skills.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
I'm sure no one ever made you that when you were at Hobart, Rich. So
That's true.
That is true. I can come up to Boston and stir one up one day. But yeah, thanks for having us on.
No, well, of course. Now I speaking of brags, I ran into Tim at TV the other week at NBC Sports Boston.
I know you guys are TV guys, yeah.
And so I didn't realize you were quite the Renaissance man that you are. We might as well start with this. You have like sneaky Bill Belichick. You had all kinds of Belichick intel that we were talking about on TV the other week. That's kind of blown up.
Yeah, I think that's a stretch, Adam. That I had all sorts of stuff.
He's a Belichick insider.
Wow.
It's kind of common knowledge amongst the ACC people that we do know that. I don't think they're going to be very good this year. So that'll be even more fun to watch when, those beautiful press conferences. But, I do know the people, some of the media people in the area down there, whether it's the ACC network or the locals. And, they haven't been really welcomed into the fraternity yet. So, and we kind of know what that looks like up here. But, as a college coach and having been one and been with different college coaches and at different universities, I mean, obviously, it's a totally different nut than being a pro coach. You got to do a lot of things. And, Jeff Van Gundy once told me, he says, the difference between being a college coach and a pro coach, he says, my phone never rings when you're a pro coach. No one's ever talked to you. And I've been to Brad Stevens' office, and his kids are running around, and his wife's there. But when you're a college coach, you have so many things thrown at you all the time and so many responsibilities. And people that think they own you, including the boosters that are paying a lot of your salary. So if you're not keeping those people happy, then you're starting off on the wrong foot. That's all I'll say about that. And but he's got the 6 Super Bowl rings, and it's really going to come down to if he wins or not. And right now it doesn't look like they're going to be that good this year because of the quarterback situation. But time will tell.
So before we get to the Celtics, speaking of college coaches and your time at Providence, one of the all-time great coach rants was Jim Calhoun at UConn after you guys beat him, and he was asked about Ryan Gomes, and he goes on and on and on and on about Ryan Gomes and how he bleeped up. He should have gone after Ryan Gomes. Of course, you had Ryan Gomes. Did you hear that live? Were you in that room? What's the story from your side of things when Calhoun went nuts about that?
Well, the great thing about that story, Rich, is that every year on the anniversary of it, somebody tweets it out, whether it's Big East memes or something. Then somebody sends it to me. And finally, my son's 14 now, and I finally show it to him. I've been wanting to show it to him for like 10 years, but I just couldn't because of the language. But because the full version, uncut version, is classic. No, actually, that was before Twitter and cell phones and all this other stuff. I think it was 2004. Mm-hmm. And I got a call. We rolled into Hartford, and they actually won the national championship that year, and they were number 2 at the time. And we went in and we beat them pretty good. We beat them by like 12 or 14. And Ryan Gomes just had an unbelievable game. And Ryan was from down the road. He was from Waterbury, Connecticut, and UConn didn't recruit him. I mean, how could they? I mean, Ryan was like, and Jim told the story, he's like 6'5", and he was overweight, and, he really wasn't that well coached, bounced around a couple schools, whatever. There's no way they were going to recruit him. I mean, we hardly recruited him until the end. I mean, he was going to go to Siena, I think. And then we jumped in right at the end and got him. And, he went in and had 28 and 15 against the Mecca Okafor, and he just absolutely destroyed UConn single-handedly. And Jim had been leading up to the game. Jim had been very complimentary about Ryan, explained the whole story, the whole nine, why he didn't recruit him, how, he liked him. He's a great player, great kid, blah, blah, blah. But after the game, he was annoyed, of course, after they lost. And somebody asked him again, I guess, do you wish you would have recruited him, or why didn't you? Something like to that effect. And then he went. And, I happened to be home back in Rhode Island at the time, and one of my assistants called me and said, Coach, you got to turn on SportsCenter. Calhoun went off after the game. And, in today's day and age, you'd see it 10 minutes later. But this was like 3 or 4 hours later. I did the press conference first. We got on the bus. We came home. I'm ready to go out to dinner that night. We're happy as heck. We just beat UConn on the road. And all of a sudden, now Jim went off. And then the reporters started calling me and said, well, is Jim going to apologize to you? I said, heck no.
Yeah, why?
Jim just put Ryan Gomes on the map.
Yeah, that was amazing.
So that was the story. And Jim and I laugh about it. We're good friends. We laugh about it to this day. And but yes, that story still is alive and well out on the interwebs for sure.
Well, know him for sure. It's ex-Celtic Ryan Gomes, played for you at Providence College. Tim Welsh, former Providence head coach. You can catch him Sundays in Providence, 103.7 WEEI with Meter, 7 to 9 every Sunday morning. Here all over WEEI. Let's focus in on the Celtics. You were talking Ryan Gomes, ex-Celtic. They're down 0-2 to the New York Knicks. Game 3 tomorrow at MSG. What's the biggest factor in why the Celtics are down 2-0?
Well, I just think there's a myriad of factors, but the biggest thing is that Tatum hasn't played like an all-star. I mean, you can't step up and play in the second round of the NBA playoffs and do what he's done the last 2 games, especially the other night, the second game too. I mean, just a total no-show. I mean, we've seen it before with him. You wonder why it happens. I don't know if there's a reason. I think he's just too aloof at times. He's not locked in enough. He's not gritty enough. The people that I know around that know him kind of say the same thing, that at times he just kind of floats out there, and you saw it the other night. He was floating and right down to the last play of the game. We couldn't even get a shot off coming down the floor. So he's got to play better. And I think he will. Usually he does when his back's against the wall, but we'll see if it's too late. I mean, you saw him in the Orlando series. The stuff that he's hurt, I don't buy that. I mean, at the end of the Orlando series, he was just the best player in the playoffs the last 3 or 4 games in that series. So having said that, he's just got to lock in. I mean, I don't know what the problem is, if it's, the matchups or whatever, it doesn't matter. You can't say I'm one of the best players in the world and go out and play like that in the playoffs.
Knowing that the philosophy is to take a lot of threes, and if it's an open 3, you absolutely take it. At what point, though, as the head coach, do you step in and say, all right, we're shooting 25% as a team, so even though we are getting good looks, everybody is cold from 3, or do you go the Mazula route and say, make the next one, whatever it is, make the next one?
Yeah, I know math comes into play and you think it's going to turn around, but at some point, especially when you have the lead, Rich, it becomes the clock as well. It's not just about the scoreboard and 3s versus 2s. It's about how much time is left and how many actual possessions are left in the game, and using a little bit more clock and finding a good 3, not getting the ball in the lane and dribbling it back out to the corner and just turning and firing. And that's the problem I think you saw, especially in game 1. It's just they just didn't look at the clock. They played like there was no clock. Like it was just first to 110 wins this game. And, Joe talked about it after the next day. He said there's different ebbs and flows. And I think obviously what he's referring to was time and score. I mean, that's so important. I mean, you watch all these games and you have to have an understanding of that. And it's not just the coach, it's the players. The players, you have to look at the clock and understand what a good shot is and how you're up by 20 points. There's only so many possessions left in the game. And I don't mean taking the air out of the ball for sure, but New York is not a very good defensive team. I mean, Tom Thibodeau is an excellent defensive coach. We all know that from his days back here with the Celtics as an assistant. He was a specialist on defense. But you got 2 weak links out there on the floor most of the time in Brunson and Towns. And, you got to exploit that. You have to exploit that. You got to try to get Brunson in switches and take him to the basket because he can't defend you. If you're driving, if you get him in a switch on the wing, it's 2 points. And I don't care if it's 2 is less than 3. It doesn't matter. 2 is 2. And when you keep chucking and missing, you've got to try to reestablish and rethink your plan as the game goes on.
Right. 3 is more than 2, but 2 is a heck of a lot more than 0. I'm with you on that math. I'm no math expert, but I'm with you on that. What do you think of Mazula and his approach with Mitchell Robinson, the Hack-a-Mitch, which has us perplexed? It was extra frustrating in game 2 where they weren't even sending him to the line. They were just fouling him just to put New York in the bonus, which didn't make any sense. What's your thoughts on that approach and the viability of Joe Mazzulla hacking away at Mitchell Robinson?
Well, I know Detroit did it, but you're better than Detroit. No one disputes that. I wouldn't copy Detroit, what they're doing. I would just do what they did in the regular season, which I don't believe they did that in the regular season. And it worked out pretty well for me. Mitchell Robinson's a nice player, but I don't think you want to focus your game plan on him. I wouldn't do it. I think it takes a little flow out of your game, takes just the wind out of your sails. I know you don't play that way all season long. Now you're playing that way. I don't know if that's an organizational philosophy. It came down after looking at analytics. I have no idea. I was surprised they did it. I would think they're going to move away from it. I would think they're going to move away from a few different things tomorrow. They're smart. Brad's there. Brad's going to have his input for sure. He's not going to try to coach the team, but I know he enjoyed Joe do talk. And I would go small, too, against them. I would go smaller. Late in the game, I thought that they gotten some bad matchups out front when Horford was trying to guard Brunson, because Thibodeau just got him in switches, and all of a sudden you're looking at Horford trying to guard Brunson out on the perimeter, and that's a no-win situation. I would go small. I'd put Tatum on Towns, and I'd bring Pritchard in. Have Pritchard harass Brunson out on the perimeter. If he picks up 3-4 fouls, good. Just let him harass him. And he gets the loose balls. He's a better defensive player than you think. He's certainly better than Al Horford on the perimeter as a defender. So I'm sure they'll make some adjustments. They have to, because it's not looking good right now, just as far as their confidence. And I think just as a coach, sometimes you have to just tweak something where it's not a big tweak, but it just gives the team an idea and something in their head. Well, okay, coach has made an adjustment here. We're going to do this differently, and it'll help us. And certainly the Knicks aren't invincible. They lost 2 home games to the Pistons in the first round. So New York can definitely lose 2 to Boston this weekend. But the Celtics have to make some tweaks in order to do it.
What's the challenge as a coach with a guy like Porzingis, where he's available, but apparently he's not available enough to start, which would be his normal role? You use him off the bench. He actually played more minutes in the second half than the first half, but it still wasn't his normal workload. So I'm sure you'd say, well, any Porzingis is better than none, but at the same time, that really changes your normal rotations.
Yeah, I don't understand why you wouldn't start him. My philosophy always, and a lot of coaches I talk to agree with this. I mean, if you have a guy that is limited in minutes that is a starter, why wouldn't you just start him? He's the freshest at the beginning of the game. Why would you rest him when he's already rested? If you know what I mean. When the clock starts, he's already been resting. Okay, so just play him until he's tired. So the mystery illness part is baffling. Obviously, there's something there, but I would expect him to be back in the starting lineup tomorrow. I would think that would be another one of their tweaks, just to try to give them a little life. He's played well at MSG in the past. He's made a lot of shots in that building. I think he likes playing there against the Knicks since he was there. I would think they're going to start him, but I wouldn't start the game with him on the bench if he's available to play.
Good coaching insight. Tim Welsh, former Providence head coach, joining us here on Jones and Keefe. Again, you can check him out Sunday mornings, 103.7 WEEI in Providence with Meter. When it comes to the end of the game sequence, the final 12 seconds, whatever it was, did you think Mazula should have initially called a timeout? What did you think of him running the same play a second time? Should he have bailed Tatum out on that play with a timeout? What did you think of that whole approach to the final sequence?
Well, I think it's not even debatable. You have to call the timeout. First of all, there's only 12 seconds to go. When you call the timeout, you get the ball at half court. So now you're saving some seconds, not having to bring the ball up the full length of the floor. So now you get the ball at half court. You can design a lot of different things from the sidelines differently. You have a myriad of plays that you have from the sideline out of bounds. And then you got to go quickly. You can't wait to take the last shot, because it's either, make or miss and win or lose on that one shot. And you're putting too much pressure on that one play. You've got to go quickly to the basket to, number one, give yourself a chance for an offensive rebound and then a put back to win. Or number two, if you don't make it, a chance to foul quickly and then get the ball back again and maybe take a three. If you're down 3, go for the 3 at the end, because Thibodeau doesn't foul down 3. We've seen that in the past. We saw it at MSG when Tatum made the 3 to send the game in overtime the last time they played in the regular season. So I just think that you have to rethink that. Even if you want to run the same play, whatever, that's fine. But you got to try to get the ball at half court, and you've got to try to go a lot sooner than they did.
Tim, good question here from our text line. As going back to your days at Providence, Joe Mazula, of course, a Rhode Island product. He ended up at West Virginia. I'm curious, did you guys recruit Joe Mazula, and what, if anything, do you remember about high school player Joe Mazula?
Well, we had a long relationship with Joe Mazula. He grew up like 10 minutes from our campus. And his dad was a high school coach. Dan was an excellent high school coach in Johnston, Rhode Island. And Joe came to our camp since he was in 6th grade, I believe, 6th grade all the way through high school. He was a very good high school basketball player at Hendricken. We did recruit him. We talked to him a lot over the years. It just didn't fit for him or for us at that time. Sometimes it's just the timing and the fit of your roster doesn't fit. We had a lot of guys that couldn't make shots, and Joe wasn't a great shooter at the time. But I'll tell you what, he had a heck of a college career at West Virginia. And I'll give you a little tidbit that I only saw is that my last game that I ever coached at Providence, I rewatched it for some reason. I don't know why. Oh, I think my son asked me, did you ever coach against Joe Mazula? I said, yeah, let's pop it on. And it was in the Big East tournament in Madison Square Garden, and he scored the final basket of my career.
Wow.
So that's something I don't think I've ever told Joe that. I think I just looked that up this year when we were watching Celtic games or whatever. But no, he was an excellent player, played for John Beilein and Bob Huggins. Got West Virginia to the Final Four.
Yeah.
And I know Bob Huggins just loved him as a player and as a leader. And a lot of the coaches that I know, in not only in the NBA but the college guys, Joe was very, very active during COVID, setting up Zooms with other coaches around the country, just talking basketball almost every other day during COVID when no one had anything to do. So I'm glad he got this opportunity. He's worked hard. He came up in a coach's family, and I know Brad had no thoughts other than Joe Mazula putting him into that seat. And, he's grown as a coach. We saw the first year he didn't call timeouts enough. Mm-hmm. And the other night, if Tatum gets to his right hand, we're probably not even having this conversation whether he should have called a timeout or not. I mean, that's easy to second guess, but absolutely Tatum's got to understand you got to go quicker. And the other thing I would have done in that situation is when you rewatch the play is Brunson's out on the right wing. I would have started Tatum somewhere away from the ball and then have him come back and try to get him in another switching situation where maybe he's on Brunson has to guard him. But when he came right down the middle of the floor, he got tangled up and they forced him to his left, and the rest is history. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. But I have a feeling that Tatum's going to come out and be very motivated tomorrow, and you're going to see a different guy.
Speaking of history, Joe Mazula gets the final bucket against Tim Welsh at Providence. I would have wagered on Pitnogle, Keefe.
Oh, you thought Pitnogle?
I would have thought it was Pitnogle.
Or Gansey?
You guys were shutting him down, Pitnogle.
Yeah. It was kind of a nothing play. It wasn't a 1-point game. It was I think we lost by 5 or something like that. But that team did go to the Final Four, and Joe was a pain in the neck. We watched the game. He was a pain in the neck to play against because he was all over you defensively. He was a hard-nosed, tough, hard-nosed kid, and he became a good shooter and became a solid offensive player, which he really wasn't growing up because he was so good getting to the rim. He really never worked on his perimeter game, and then once he started really getting into shooting the basketball, he became a good player.
Well, did they play like a 1-3-1? Because there was a clip going around the other day on Instagram of West Virginia versus Kentucky, and you have little Joe Mazula like bodying DeMarcus Cousins
at the bottom of the
and like pushing him out of the lane
and
stuff. Is that what they ran?
Yes, yeah, they did. And when he first went there, John Beilein famously played a lot of 1-3-1, and then John left and went to Michigan, and Huggins came in and coached Joe. And yes, and Huggins told me this, that one of the reasons they got to the Final Four is Joe told them to switch defenses at some point, maybe it was in the Elite Eight game, and play the 1-3-1. And yes, they played it a lot, and Joe was in the back of it. And that's usually put your toughest, hard-nosed defender guy who can get from one side of the court to the other the fastest in the back. And Joe did play the back. They played a lot of 1-3-1. But Huggins, to this day, credits Joe for, even helping him with some coaching situations as a player.
All right, excellent stuff. Tim Welsh, former Providence head coach. Catch him Sunday mornings on 103.7 in Providence with Meter. Follow him on Twitter at TimWelsh5. Tim, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
All right, guys, anytime. Great to be with you.
Thank you.
All right, Tim Welsh joining us here on Jones and Keefe. High noon.